Hello, Knowmium audience. I am Robert with Knowmium, and this is another webinar called Business Casual, where we casually talk business with different people from the business community. Today, I'm joined by Ivan Oung. He is a product manager in a software development company called Cohort 6 Productions.
That's right.
I got all that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, excellent. Well, Ivan, why don't you, since you know yourself better than I know you, why don't you tell our wonderful audience a bit about you and what your company does?
All right. Thank you, Bob, for inviting me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm Ivan. So I'm a product manager at a web development company. Mostly what I do is I am a lubricant between clients and development teams and designers as well. So in a nutshell, I bring dreams and hopes and inspirations and turn them into web product.
That's a really classy way of that's a really creative way of describing that. I like that. Excellent.
Thank you.
So let me go a little bit deeper though. Can you tell me more about your work with it, that you personally do in your role, and you can expand on what your company does as well if you'd like?
Absolutely. So mostly clients and customer wants to improve their business, and they want to improve their profitability or their efficiency, within the company. So what I do is I go there, talk to them, listen to what they have in mind, trying to figure out what's underneath, what their initial thoughts, and figure out the specifications, what they really need, hammer down a plan, and then talk to our developers and designers, and bring a product out that will actually help them solve their problem. So I'm just the middleman, but I'm the listener. And actually growing up with 4 women in the household helps me a lot with that. Yeah, big help.
Well, in terms of interpersonal communication studies, there is a lot of research that shows statistically women are better communicators, better listeners. So that's good. And we do a lot of communication training.
Yes.
That's what our entire company does.
Mm-hmm.
And listening is huge. And when you talked about finding the underlying reasons of your clients,
Exactly.
how do you go about that? What types of questions or what types of conversations do you have with them to really find out what they want and what they think they want?
That's actually a great question. So it happens that a lot of people or clients come in with a lot of different requests. Those requests could be a mobile app, for example, for an e-commerce store, or a website for a brick and mortar store that they wanted to, it's a restaurant that they wanted to become a more e-commerce flashy restaurant, I don't know. But people come in with a lot of different requests that they might or might not understand fully of what that entails. So my job, and usually how I go about it, is first I don't assume anything. I assume I know nothing about it, regardless of whether I know anything about it. I start asking questions, trying to help both of us justify what's really their objective, what they really wanted to get out of why they come to us. So some of the questions, example question is, by executing and go through this project, how is the end result that you wanted to see at the very end? Are you trying to get your teams to talk better, or are you trying to shorten the time lag between different departments, or it's just that you're trying to capture more of your client's attention so that they stay within your business longer? So those are some really distinctive questions that we could help find out and pin down what the client really wants, and then we start to ask, okay, how do you envision that? Starting to butter it up, trying to picture what really looks like. So it is something that we call a simple goal can have different way of achieving it. So our way is to find out first, where do we want to be at the very end, and how do we go about it?
Okay. So let me ask, if you had, what would you prefer? Mm-hmm. Would you prefer working with a client that knew their business but nothing about software and apps, Or would you rather work with a business that, of course, knew their business, but then they did know about software and apps and had some ideas on what they would want from your company? Which one's easier to work with for you? Or which one would you prefer?
That's a tough question. I would think knowing nothing about the web is a little bit easier in the sense that because they are fresh, they don't have a certain bias towards the final solution. Sometimes it's easier to work with these kind of clients because there are more flexibility with what we can offer. And helping them to understand what they really need, it's all we care. Because it is the web or the application is just a means of achieving a goal. So, if they know their stuff, that's great. We spend less time pitching to them and more time on working on their actual product. But if people who are thoroughly understand their own business, that's the most important part. That we care a lot. And sometimes that's not the deadliest part. The deadliest part is the people who don't actually understand their own business. But that's the toughest part usually.
All right, and just one more question kind of on that same line. What if you have a client and they said, here's the website or the app that we want. Mm-hmm. We want it to be full of pop-ups, flashing lights, and just unnecessary doodads.
Yeah.
What do you do? What do you do if they're like, here's what we want, and you're thinking this, maybe in the research that we've done or the case studies that we've read, this is actually not going to succeed, but they're very adamant about what they want. What might you do, or what have you done in those situations?
Great questions. So those are very tough questions. And
you can say skip. You don't have to answer. You're like, let me tell you about this company. No, don't name any names.
That actually happens more than often that you can imagine, and which is one of the toughest jobs for like product managers as well. So we are the devil's advocate that tells that your son is too fat, but in a very nice way. So we don't go around and say, your son is too fat. Get your ass off and start working out. We don't do that. But in a way that we go about it, of these kind of questions, is that first we try to understand where they got the idea first. Usually that's really easy to sort of tackle down why they want to go about it. Probably it's an app that Shopify or Spotify or Facebook that's doing, so that they feel very comfortable of taking that idea and replicating it. Usually there is a certain kind of logical gap in between, because things that work with one app does not really entail that it would work in the other situation. And we sort of approach the blunder or the conflict by asking more questions to inflict a sort of self-reflection and helping the client to understand that, let's say, flashy pop-up, we would go about and say, have we had the chance to talk to our real users, trying to find out how would they react to pop-up or flashy things. Sometimes is there a recognition difference between what you want and what actually works? Can we help closing that gap? And we've tried to find out, we'll find a middle ground between that. We would suggest, hey, we can sit down with your real clients and have a section of playing around with your app or some sample, trying to get their feedback and talk to them and see your idea would match them as well. And if that is the case, we go ahead and take their advice and say, let's implement that. But if we find out that's otherwise, we would just go ahead and suggest there is always a better way, and let's figure that out and help you figure out what's best for your company, best for your situation, best for your position. Because at the end of the day, we want everybody to win. We don't want to stay on different side and just make everybody unhappy. But there's always a way to find out where's the middle ground, and it takes a little time.
Okay. Yeah, and hopefully they would trust you as the experts. Hopefully.
Absolutely.
But they're like, no, these Facebook ads are awesome. They're not. I'm not in software technology, and I know that they're not awesome. Yeah. Okay, excellent. So this may be this may be going on kind of on that same line, but are there other cases that you find in your work, whether it's with clients or whether it's just you working, that is the most challenging, or what is something that's most difficult? We've already talked about dealing with clients who maybe do or don't know about tech, but is there anything else that you find really, really challenging or even frustrating about the type of work that you do?
Absolutely. So frustrations, that happens to a lot of people, and especially in software development company, because I think software is the bridge between a business means and the clients. So it's quite important that things are perfectly done. Our most challenge or more frustrated is how to sympathize with our client and help them to understand that we are on the same page. We're on the same side. And one of the cases that happens recently is a client, they want to build an app, a mobile app. It's just everybody's asking the same thing. However, mobile app are not always the answer to most of the questions. It's just part of it. Let's say the reason why they really wanted a mobile app is to capture customers' time. So as we all know, we were fighting for clients, customers, or anybody's attention. So if you're Facebook, if you're YouTube, or whatever company, one of the reasons why you wanted an app is you wanted to capture their attention, you want to capture their time. Their time spent with you is actually money. And that works for advertisement, that works for any online product. So it is very logical, which I totally agree, is that business wants mobile app. It is the challenge that we go about and tell clients that might not be the case that they want. One of the things is that we try to find out is, hey, is there a cheaper way that could achieve the same goal without actually helping you to build a mobile app? Because time is money. You could always lose money, that's okay, but time is something that you cannot regain. So, by capturing attention, I could easily hire somebody, just go butt naked and just start screaming on the street. That might actually get the same amount of attention, or might even more, with lesser amount of money and lesser amount of commitment and time. So, the challenge is just to get them to understand that what they think might not be the best, and I am only there not to criticize them, but to help them really figure out what is best for them.
Okay, excellent. So, two more major questions here. Is there like a funny or unique or some kind of strange experience that's happened to you in your line of work, in your line of business? And this could be what you're doing now, this could be previous work, this could be in your university studies. Is there anything crazy or weird that kind of stands out as this shareable moment?
I think weird and, we've seen a lot. So if you work in an ER and you see a splinter that goes through left cheek to right cheek, it might be surprising for a lot of people, but it might not be surprising for the people who work in the ER. I guess it is just that people have a lot of different expectations, like flashy cards, pop-ups. It is very weird if you're not working in the industry to receive different kind of requests that makes no sense to developers or designers, because we've seen enough to sort of understand what works and what doesn't, and client doesn't have the resource or exposure to understand those, so they come up with let's say I wanted a white, bright, shiny app in a very dark environment. That doesn't make sense to us, but their fear suggests that, I want something bright, I want it to be seen. Well, these are weird, and sort of we would just laugh and say, this again. No worries, we're there to help, but it is sort of weird to other people, but not to us.
Okay. Now, one thing I know that from talking to you, and is that you have been looking at another web-based application through it's the Toastmasters International. They have redone their education programs and they're all online, but they're having some issues around the world with people either getting on there, being able to understand how to use it. There's pop-ups involved that may not work on mobile, and you've actually been studying this and taking a look and seeing what you or anybody else might be able to do to refine that and to make it a better user experience. Is that a good summary of kind of what you've been doing with that?
Absolutely.
Oh, and yeah, do you want to talk about that briefly a little more? Where is it now? What are you looking at?
Absolutely. So I have been a person or an element or a unit that's really fascinated by, impact, effectiveness, and what works. So one of the things that I'm trying to do is I'm also involved in Toastmaster. I think it's a really great club or organization, and I really admire what they're doing. I compete during my high school time and even earlier times. I do choirs, I do public speaking a lot, so I understand that it is difficult for a lot of people, and presentation is not, it's even one of the most feared things that can be done by anybody. So I really admire Toastmaster and what they do, and however, I do think that there is something that can be done to improve people who are actually trying to benefit from the Toastmaster. So I've been doing like case studies. I understand digital marketing as well as user experience and as well as the software cycle. So what I'm just trying to do is I try to use leisure time, talk to people who are actually using the software, using the piece of platform, trying to understand what they're really frustrating and try to find a balance between what the client or what the user really wanted to use and what the organization is actually trying to achieve. I think there's different side of the story, and it's not always one side are the right one or the one side or the other side is the bad one, but it's just that where is the angle that we could find to satisfy those angles and to collaborate better. And what I'm doing at the moment is asking questions, like literally asking questions to members, people who are involved, directors, try to find out what they're actually struggling and convert them into actually tangible designs. And I have a plan that hopefully I could propose something to Toastmasters International and try to find a way that we could all both work, benefit out from what we're doing.
Sounds like a very noble cause, challenging, but I know that's all volunteer. The entire organization is volunteer, and I know that you're just doing this on your own, not just on a volunteer basis, but just because you enjoy what you do. And that's awesome to hear.
Thank you.
You enjoy the line of work you're in, I think.
Well,
listening to you today and in our previous conversations, I think you enjoy your work.
I do. I think I just have a knack for, not compromising with what that doesn't work. So it's just nitpicking. I could have just let it go, but it's something that I think it's difficult. Like it's difficult to spend time and to find out what really works because there are a lot of resistance. It could be money, it could be time, it could be anything, and to spend time and invest into finding out the right solution, it's not easy. But and it requires a lot of time and thoughts to it. It's as simple as a like button, for example. Facebook has product manager focuses on just the like and share button. They are a single product of Facebook, and having one like or two likes, or like when they implement the emoji that goes along with comparing to the old version of just having a like button, that's a lot of thought and design behind them, and it is what really fascinates me because it asks a lot of why.
And I think if you do have any connections at Facebook, see if they can finally get a dislike button. 'Cause that's like the one. I mean, there's the angry emoji,
Yeah.
but it doesn't really mean dislike. It might mean I agree with you. I'm like, where's that thumbs down?
Yeah.
I want to be like, you are wrong. No, yeah, because arguments on Facebook are really the highlight of human communication.
Yes.
Most conflicts in the political social world are resolved through Facebook conversations. It's very
that's a really touchy like an area of design, and I think it actually develops into understanding. Well, for example, for instance, we need to understand that how Facebook want to portray what kind of an environment and how to nurture the conversation. And we also, I think the design also comes into consideration of, how do they fuel the conversation without fueling the negative side, so that it just doesn't spins off as like a crazy chaotic situation. So those are things that it needs to be taken into consideration. I think dislike can be a good thing or bad thing. There's no really like a yes or no kind of way to decide, but it's just that how much consideration, what are the worst and best situation that this implementation would come out, how do we actually prevent something that's out of our hand that wouldn't happen, and how do we encourage something nicer, more positive to happen. So those are a lot of considerations.
Absolutely. So another thought I had when you were talking about apps and what's on there, thinking about if it's a client and they only have 1,000 people who might be using their app, or even less if it's an internal company app, versus somewhere like Toastmasters International, who has like 300,000 people around the world, or Facebook, which is 1 billion people or something now. But we sit here and we open up something, and I think the general public doesn't realize what we see: fast, simple, easy to use, yes, but to get there, there's a lot of stuff that you've gone through and other software developers have gone through to get it that easy, that simple.
Absolutely. Like, you mean what are the process?
No, I'm not really. Yeah, I'm not trying to get you to explain. To walk us through how you make. No, it's just kind of my feedback. Like,
okay.
Just it's like medical research, for example. Somebody goes into the doctor with a broken arm and they get a cast, and for them, there's a pretty that was simple. But how many hours and hours and decades of research went into everything from understanding how that human bone works to which material, which type of cast, or even now developing new casts that are this like nanotechnology that actually heals it faster. So it's always changing. But just go, if we use that as an analogy for an app or a feature on an app, what has gone into the research, the development, the conversations with people to even agree on, yes, we want the button here, exactly, right? The button's on the left or the right side. That could be in a 10-hour conversation.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's you got that right. Like, I think it's sort of one of the frustration that we get as like a web development company or like web developer. It's adding a button is easy. That's like it's our pet peeves, and it's when I used to be that kind of person as well. It wouldn't be that hard to add a button, but sometimes we ignored, or we don't know how much time that was being put behind making that happen. It could be regulation, it could be just dealing with different areas of law, it could be just dealing with design consistency, or how effective this is when we put in time and invest into those kind of features. Those are a lot of debates, and every single thing that was implemented on the app or the website, it takes time, and it is it could be very simple on the outside world. People saying that it's not that hard, but once you go through that process, you understand it is actually really complicated, and it could be really hectic. So absolutely.
All right. Yeah. Awesome. Well, that is a lot. That was a lot of deep answers. I hope everybody else has learned something about software and product management and tech companies. So, final outro. What's next for you personally? What are you doing next in the business world? And what types of people or companies should contact you or someone like you?
Absolutely. So I think my next step is I'm open to any opportunities and collaborations right now. So I'm keeping my eyes open and my options open. I definitely want to work on something that's more impactful, like really make a change to the world. Something that a company would do, it's like maybe redesign the metro, something like that. Not necessarily the big scale of it, but it's not. I just don't want to work with something that's just copy and paste.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have that in depth of looking into the real problem, and certainly I value problem solving more than anything. I think that if I just wanted to sit at an office and be a nice little pretty, not lady, but nice little pretty thing that sits in the office, I could have done that long ago. I don't have to ask questions or just go do different things and just try it out. So I'm definitely looking for challenges at the very moment, and I think who would actually want to come and find me is people who want to use web or mobile. It could be in the form of website, mobile app, or something digital, or like an advertisement, digital advertisement. They could come and look for me, and we could talk it out. I could help them to figure out what's best for them, and for more, we could even offer the solution as well.
Well, I have one suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
This is, I'll say this in case someone's watching. The Hong Kong bus system, your route search on mobile, yeah, that's a suggestion. That's a good one that needs to be because you mentioned Metro, and I was like, oh, the Hong Kong bus route search, man, that one, yeah. Anyways, all right. So Ivan, thank you for coming here. Thank you for doing this.
Bob.
Thank you for sharing your ideas with our larger audience. I'm going to link Ivan's contact information in the video description. So if you're watching this on YouTube, especially, that's where it will be. And we look forward to our next episode of Business Casual. If you viewing around the world want a certain type of person, whether it's software, whether it's communication, whether it's finance, or really any major business, or if there's a specific person or even yourself you'd like to be on one of our webinars, let us know, send us a message or leave a comment, and we will be in touch. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ivan.